Oliver Dobson lives in a town outside of Canada's financial nerve centre, a nearly 3-hour drive from Toronto. How he earns his living is worlds apart from the traditional business of Bay Street. For the past few years, Dobson has been trading in cryptocurrencies, stockpiling a hoard of digital coins that have suddenly skyrocketed in price. In the real world, he lives off of cash savings, but on the internet, he works in myriad ways to harvest these tokens. He considers it his full-time job. "I'm very frugal with my money," Dobson said. "I focus my time stocking up on these coins so that when they explode in price, I can take advantage of it." Prices for these cryptocurrencies, which have less familiar names like Ether and Nano, are exploding because they are riding on the coattails of Bitcoin, which has been on a feverish run. The going rate has catapulted from about $9,000 per Bitcoin a year ago to a peak of roughly $58,000 in late February, according to CoinDesk. The tidal wave has showered digital wealth on Dobson and other Canadians with a stake in the game, while attracting large players from Wall Street like never before. Bitcoin's flirtation with mainstream acceptance and the gravity-defying climb in the price along with some white-knuckle dips have made headlines around the world and even captured the attention of the doubters. Underneath the mania is a potential sea change in the world of finance that observers say was made possible by a global pandemic. And what's at stake is nothing less than a war for the future of money. But there are plenty of skeptics. They warn Bitcoin is a highly speculative investment play with no real value backing it up and that investors run the risk of crushing losses. Create money out of thin air. The rally has made Dobson's seemingly bizarre occupation all the more lucrative. Among other methods, he said he uses Bitcoin to buy other digital coins on crypto exchanges and sell them when they rise in price. He also keeps his eye out for so-called airdrops, where crypto startups release free tokens or coins as part of a marketing stunt. If you're asking me how do you make your money, I guess in a way, you just go try random stuff and they might just create money out of thin air and hand you some. Bitcoin climbs above $50 KUS for first time. The new wave of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies has its share of colorful characters. It also has some heavy hitters from legacy finance, wealthy investors and big institutions, such as PayPal Holdings Inc., MasterCard Inc., Visa Inc., and Tesla Inc., are embracing Bitcoin in various ways, signaling broader approval of crypto for the first time. The 2018 route. To understand how this happened, and what it all means, it's helpful to look back at the last Bitcoin wave, which ended when investors watched vast sums of wealth get wiped out in a brutal crash. Invented as an alternative to national currencies in the depths of the financial crisis in 2009, Bitcoin enjoyed one of its sharpest climbs almost a decade later. In 2017, the going rate escalated from less than $3,000 per coin to nearly $20,000 in 6 months. List 10 The boom in Bitcoin and whether you need to care about cryptocurrencies. This Bitcoin boom was driven not by big institutions like banks and pension funds, but by amateur, regular investors making a bet on new technology, said Alex McDougall, the managing director of portfolio management at the Bitcoin and digital asset fund manager 3Q in Toronto. People were drawn to an alternative to the legacy banking system. McDougall said, Bitcoin and its underlying technology presented a possible end run around these gatekeepers, allowing people to do their own banking without a large financial institution. We saw this potential move towards a radically open world and an entire new generation of wealth could be created in an entirely different type of market participant, McDougall said. We also saw a ton of scams and fraud and a bunch of, quite frankly, BS that sprung up around the market. The price of Bitcoin ultimately crashed in 2018, dropping more than 80% in a year. Left in the ashes were people who lost their life savings. Monty Coley, a cryptocurrency investor in his early 20s at the time, didn't face catastrophic losses, but still watched up to $8,000 in wealth disappear. Despite the setback, he believes in the ethos of decentralized finance and continues to have money invested in digital coins, but it's money he said he can afford to lose. Now 25, Coley said he is a Bitcoin banker. He said he loans out tokens in a secondary crypto market where he collects interest, though he maintains a day job working in the finance department of a Toronto company. My time horizon for investing is quite long and so that's where I can also afford to take some risk in my portfolio, he said. While long-time core believers like Coley remain in the game, some bigwigs on Wall Street are suddenly stepping in from the sidelines.